To tell the story of Enzo Ferrari's life is to tell a Shakespearean tragedy. Though he was considered a living legend and fondly referred to as Il Grande Vecchio, or Grand Old Man, he suffered tragic losses in every way a person can suffer, because everything he loved, he lost. His family, his friends, his son, his business, and yes, even auto races. His marquee Italian automobile brand, Ferrari, was the premier Italian racing car, and widely accepted worldwide as being the best and fastest cars on Earth. But his life was a living hell. So how did Enzo Ferrari live the highest of highs and the lowest of lows? This story will amaze you. Even on the day of his birth, nothing was ever easy for Enzo Ferrari. It was February 18, 1898, when a heavy snowstorm hit the town of Modena, Italy, causing his father and midwife to be unable to report that he had even been born for almost a week. And when they did get to the birth registrations office, they got the day wrong, incorrectly listing his birthday as 2 days later. Enzo and his older brother, Alfredo Jr., grew up poor, with no formal education, and Enzo assumed his life at best would be humble, toiling away like his father, a blacksmith who made metal parts out of the back of their family home. However, that would never come to be, as Enzo's teenage years would play out like a tragedy. His father, Alfredo Sr., and Enzo's older brother, Alfredo Jr., both died from the Spanish flu outbreak when Enzo was only 17. Death hit Enzo hard, and would come to plague him so deeply that his life would be dictated by coping with loss. Still a teenager, Enzo enlisted in World War I in the Italian army, where he would work alongside his mentor and best friend, an Italian fighter pilot named Francesco Baracca. Around his neck during his air missions, Francesco wore a necklace his mother had made for him, a design of a prancing horse rearing up on its hind legs, ready to take off. Enzo loved what the idea of the leaping horse represented, a chance to rise above his station in life. So when Enzo learned that Francesco was wearing the horse necklace during battle, when he was shot down and killed by an Austrian airplane, Enzo never forgot the hopeful image of that prancing horse. It would one day be his inspiration for the emblem that would become synonymous with Ferrari automobiles, and a way to honor his late friend. A few months after Francesco's tragic death, Enzo caught the Spanish flu and nearly lost his life. He would recover, however it ultimately caused him to be discharged from the army. Back at home, and with no father or brother, Enzo had no compass on where his adult life would go, but he had an idea of something that brought him joy. When he was 10 years old, he had seen and loved an auto race called the Circuito di Bologna, an event that started his love affair with automobiles. And so Enzo sought out a job in the new and growing world of motor carriages. He landed a job as a driver testing cars for a car manufacturer in Milan called CMN, and he was later promoted to their race car driving team. In 1919, at age 21, Enzo made his debut behind the wheel at the Parma Poggio di Bersetto hill climb race, where he finished a promising fourth. However, things went downhill from there the following year at the Targa Florio, when his car tank leaked fuel, causing him to place a disappointing 9th. But by then, Enzo had a taste of racing, and he loved it. The following year, Enzo joined Alfa Romeo, the top racing team at the time, as a driver, and it was here at Alfa Romeo that Enzo would start to grow into the man he would become. Over the next several years behind the wheel racing with Alfa Romeo, Enzo would begin racking up wins, winning a Grand Prix in 1923 in Ravenna, and a year later in 1924, he racked up another 3 wins. Over the years, he would compete in 41 Grand Prix races, winning 11 of them. However, for someone starting to show promise on the track, it was not all happy news, as during these years, Enzo would lose 2 of his best friends and co-racers in tragic accidents, Ugo Savocci in 1923 and Antonio Ascari in 1925. The deaths of his co-racers deeply saddened Enzo, who could no longer feel his full heart behind the wheel. He felt terrible for the sons of these late drivers who, like Enzo, would grow up without a father. And Enzo made a vow that if he ever had a son, he would stop racing. True to his word, in 1932, Enzo officially retired from behind the wheel with the birth of his son, Antonio, named after his late father and late brother. No longer behind the wheel, over the next few years, Enzo began learning about the other aspects of racing, such as the organization. He focused on the management and development of the Alfa Romeo. Office and factory life suited Enzo well, and eventually he built up a stable of superstar race car drivers, creating a racing team called Scuderia Ferrari, a racing team that acted as a division of Alfa Romeo. Ferrari's racing team, in partnership with Alfa Romeo, were a force to be reckoned with, thanks to the Alfa Romeo P3. And now, at the age of 33, Enzo finally felt he had found his calling in the world of cars and racing. The years were fun and competitive, but ultimately hit and miss, as Ferrari's racing team would face ongoing disagreements in the development of the cars and the future of the racing team. Ultimately, in 1939, Enzo was fired from Alfa Romeo, and due to a clause in his contract, not able to design a race car for 4 years. It was the early 1940s, the period of World War II, and in Italy there wasn't much demand for racing vehicles anyway. Enzo spent his years secretly dabbling in designing cars and creating his own car company, Auto Avio Costruzioni, a company supplying auto parts. But eventually, everything was put on hold as Enzo's factory was forced under Mussolini to take on wartime production, making aircraft parts and machine tools. When his factory was bombed, he relocated to Maranello to continue working until the end of the war. As the war ended and Ferrari's 4-year embargo against racing was up, Enzo turned his attention back to making his own car. Remembering the emblem of the prancing horse, the symbol of hope rising above his station, he decided to use it on a car he built and that would also bear his name, Ferrari. In 1947, as most companies were rebuilding following World War II, Enzo founded the company that would bear his name, Ferrari SPA, and he set his sights on using his cars to beat his old employer, Alfa Romeo. He built a new V12 engine that would power his first new car, the 125S, and Ferrari had success right out of the gate, including the 1949 24 Hours in Le Mans and the 1951 Carrera Panamericana, which helped build Ferrari's reputation as a high-quality automaker. In 1951, the Ferrari team achieved a historic victory when Jose Gonzalez claimed Ferrari's first World Championship Grand Prix win at Silverstone. It was the moment Enzo Ferrari had worked his entire life to achieve, shedding tears of joy when his beloved team triumphed over Alfa Romeo in their 159 Alfetta. The following years brought even more glory to Ferrari. In 1952, the team secured their first Formula One World Championship and repeated the win in 1953, solidifying Ferrari's status as a dominant force in motorsport. And Ferrari's ambitions extended beyond Formula One. In 1953, he entered the Indianapolis 500, demonstrating his commitment to diverse racing endeavors. And to fund his racing ventures, Ferrari got into the production of sports cars, a move that would become integral to the brand's identity. Ferrari produced many families of interrelated cars, including the America, the Monza, and the 250 series, including the 250 GT Coupe. Within only a 10-year window, Ferrari had built a powerhouse car company, a unicorn in the auto and racing world, and it solidified the name Ferrari as a brand of excellence known all over the world. However, as would be the story of Enzo's life, loss would soon find him. Enzo Ferrari was not a perfect husband. After marrying his wife Laura during his years at Alfa Romeo and having their only child Alfredo, Enzo would go on to keep a dark secret from his wife, a mistress he had met during his war years, and together he and his mistress Lina Lardi had a child together, a second son for Enzo named Piero. When his wife Laura found out, she didn't leave Enzo, not because she didn't want to, Divorce was illegal in Italy at the time, and as such, Enzo's second son Piero would never be recognized as legitimate until Laura's death decades later. Enzo's wife Laura was a tough woman and would go on to be an instrumental part of the Ferrari company, but it would come at a tremendous cost. Enzo and Laura's son Alfredo was being groomed to be his father's successor in his company. Enzo loved Alfredo deeply, calling him Alfredino, or Little Alfredo, or just Dino for short, and Dino's interest was in engines. Out of school, Dino began working for his father, working on the 750 Monza racing car, and a 1.5-liter V6 that they called the Ferrari Dino engine, an amazing piece of machinery that would be used in Ferrari's early Formula 2 racers. However, in 1955, while working for his father at Ferrari, Dino complained of feeling stiff, often losing his balance. He was soon diagnosed with the rare aggressive form of muscular dystrophy. Enzo refused to accept the diagnosis and condition of his son, and like his famed race cars, he thought he could control it. Enzo began controlling Dino's foods, his vitamins, his blood levels, keeping a daily record of his urine levels. Enzo just couldn't accept that his son was gradually wasting away from the inside with a progressive disease, which had no cure. Dino would never see the final engine he developed, dying on June 30th, 1956, at the age of only 24. Yet again, another tragic loss that would define Enzo's life. And Dino's death tore his family apart. Soon after, in 1957, to honor his son, Enzo named the Dino series of racing sports cars using the V6 engine after him, and road cars under the same marquee soon followed. But losing Dino wasn't the only tragedy Enzo would suffer. In 1957, the Mille Miglia auto race held on a course totaling 1,000 miles, made up entirely of public roads around Italy, mostly the outer parts of the country, a round trip between Brescia and Rome. During the 1957 Mille Miglia, the Ferrari 335S, hurtling down the narrow Italian roads at astonishing speeds, reaching 155 miles an hour. However, the fortunes of the race and its participants took a tragic turn when a tire on the Ferrari suffered a catastrophic blowout. At such high speeds, the blowout caused the car to lose control, sending it careening into the roadside crowd. The impact of the crash was catastrophic and devastating. The accident claimed the lives not only of the driver, Alfonso Di Portago, but also his co-driver and 9 spectators who had gathered to witness the race. Tragically, among the victims were 5 innocent children, adding to the horrors and heartbreak of the incident. The shockwaves of this tragedy reverberated far beyond the racing community. The loss of life in such a catastrophic and public manner deeply affected not only those directly involved, but also the entire world of motorsport and the public at large. The classic photograph entitled "Kiss of Death" depicts the moment in which Linda Christian kisses driver Alfonso Di Portago at a brief stop during the 1957 Mille Miglia race in northern Italy. Portago was killed moments later after the photo was taken. 3 days after the race, the Italian government decreed the end of the Mille Miglia and banned all motor racing on public roads of Italy, and Ferrari was charged with manslaughter. To say 1957 was a terrible year for Enzo Ferrari would be an understatement. When Enzo Ferrari was grappling with personal and legal issues following the tragic loss of his son and a series of fatal racing accidents, his wife, Laura Ferrari, emerged as a significant figure within the Ferrari organization. Laura took on an active role in the management of the company, stepping in to oversee many of the day-to-day operations in her husband's place. Laura's involvement in the Ferrari business marked a notable departure from traditional gender roles of the era. She patrolled the factory and workshop grounds with a hands-on approach, taking on responsibilities that were typically reserved for men. Her determination and ambition were on par with her husband's, and she had exceptionally high standards for the company's operation. However, Laura's management style was characterized by a demanding and often confrontational approach. She had a reputation for verbally berating and intimidating the workforce, including engineers and employees. Her strong personality, combined with her high expectations, created a work environment where employees often felt insulted, screamed at, and verbally abused. One employee that bore the brunt of Laura Ferrari's demanding nature was the sales manager, Girolamo Gardini. Gardini found himself repeatedly singled out for criticism and abused by Laura. Despite his best efforts to manage the challenges faced by the company, such as slumping sales that were beyond his control, Laura's harsh treatment took a toll on him. As the pressure and abuse from Laura continued, Gardini eventually reached his breaking point. Frustrated and feeling unfairly targeted, he decided to confront Enzo Ferrari about his wife. In the midst of building the world's greatest race cars, the loss of his son, the tragedy on the track, the lawsuit for manslaughter, Enzo was also forced to play peacekeeper within his own organization, and things were still getting worse. Eventually, Gardini led key departures of Enzo's greatest engineers as they left to form a rival car manufacturer and racing team, ATS, Automobili Turismo e Sport, which had far-reaching consequences for both Ferrari and ATS. Besides losing his sales team, Enzo lost all his managers, his chief engineers, and designers. Enzo called it the Great Walkout. After the loss of his senior staff, Enzo Ferrari took decisive actions to rebuild his racing team and organization. He promoted junior engineers to more prominent roles within the company. Additionally, he hired new drivers to race his Formula One cars. And Ferrari's reorganization and strategic moves paid off. The mid-engine Dino racers played a crucial role in laying the foundation for the dominant 250P, which led to significant victories in the world of motorsport. Simultaneously, Ferrari's road car division also flourished. The Dino road car sold well, and the company also had plans for other models, like the 275 and Daytona. In 1960, Enzo was looking to take his company public, but increasing financial difficulties and new regulations in clean air emissions caused Ferrari to start looking for a business partner. He approached Ford Motors, who was very interested in partnering with Ferrari, as Ford didn't have a racing division and felt Ferrari was a way to buy into the world of auto racing, something Henry Ford II felt was very important for the longevity of Ford. In 1963, the deal was close to closing when Ford added an extra clause in the contract. Enzo would have to give up control of his budget, meaning that Enzo would no longer have complete say over his Ferrari racing team, the very thing that Enzo had spent his lifetime building as a way to honor his lost friends and family. It was a clause that was too much for Enzo. Racing and winning on the track was Enzo's legacy, the one thing he held dear to his heart that he would never give up, not even for millions of dollars. It was a breaking point. Enzo was enraged, personally offended that Ford would try to take away his life's work. Enzo Ferrari told Henry Ford that not only would he never sell to Ford under those conditions, he called Ford ugly. He called Ford cars ugly, and the factory in which they were built ugly. And Enzo went further. He made it personal. He told Henry Ford II that his grandfather, Henry Ford, was a much better man than he was, that the real Henry Ford was dead, and Henry Ford II was a poor, unfit replacement. Enzo then turned around and began negotiations with Fiat. Henry Ford II was furious, and he sought revenge on the racetrack. Transforming his anger into motivation, Henry Ford II would stop at nothing to beat Ferrari on Ferrari's most winning race, the 24 Hours in Le Mans. Enzo would ultimately sell 50% of Ferrari stock to Fiat, with the caveat that he would remain 100% in control of the racing activities. In the second half of the 1960s, Ferrari produced two cars that moved the company forward. The 1967 Dino 206 GT, which was the first mass-produced mid-engine road car, and the 1968 365 GTB4, which possessed streamlined styling that modernized Ferrari, and it would begin a new chapter of Ferrari into the 70s and 80s. In 1971, following the agreement with Fiat, Ferrari stepped down as the managing director of the road car division, and he put his energies solely in the racing club. Ferrari had always run his company with an iron fist. His management style was autocratic, and he was known to pit drivers against each other in hopes of improving their performance. He believed that by deliberately increasing the psychological pressure on his drivers, encouraging rivalries within the team, and creating competition for the position of #1 driver, it would then make his team better. He was criticized for this practice and accused of pushing them so hard that 4 of his drivers died over a 2-year period. But Enzo believed that it was what made him the best of the best. Enzo had no other interest in life outside of motor racing, so he demanded anyone who worked with him to be all in. Enzo Ferrari's life was very private. He rarely granted interviews. He seldom left Modena and Maranello, and he never went to any Grand Prix outside of Italy after the 1950s. He was seen at the Grand Prix in Monza near Milan, but never far from the Ferrari factory, where the circuit was named after his late son, Dino. In his life, Enzo never flew in an airplane and never set foot in an elevator. Enzo Ferrari died of leukemia on August 14, 1988, in Maranello at the age of 90. Because he was a private person, and because he feared popular protests due to the fact that Ferrari's team had been beaten by McLaren in every race in the 1988 season, Enzo expressed the wish for his death to be reported in the media only on August 16th, the day after his burial, August 15th, which was witnessed only by his family. The Italian Grand Prix was held just weeks after Ferrari's death, and the result was a 1-2 finish for Ferrari. It was the only race that McLaren didn't win that season. Shortly before his death, he witnessed the launch of the Ferrari F40, which was dedicated as a symbol of his achievement. With a top speed of 201 miles an hour, it was one of the fastest cars of its time. Enzo would have been proud of Ferrari through the 90s. The team competed in Formula One racing and had a score of wins, with drivers like Alain Prost and Michael Schumacher winning multiple championships for Ferrari during the decade. In 2002, Ferrari released the Ferrari Enzo, named of course after the man himself. The Enzo Ferrari was a limited production supercar featuring advanced aerodynamics and Formula One technology, and the wins behind the wheel continued. Michael Schumacher won 5 consecutive Drivers' Championships from 2000 to 2004, and Ferrari secured 6 consecutive Constructors' Championships from 1999 to 2004. In 2013, Ferrari made their first hypercar, the LaFerrari, featuring a V12 engine coupled with an electric motor, producing a combined output of 950 horsepower. And in 2019, the Ferrari SF90 Stradale was Ferrari's first plug-in hybrid production car, combining a twin turbocharged V8 engine with 3 electric motors, delivering a total power output of 986 horsepower. And the Ferrari Corporation has continued to grow. In 2015, Ferrari went public on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol RACE. It allowed them to raise funds for future investments and expansion, expanding their product line by making models like the Ferrari Portofino and the Ferrari Roma. Enzo's son Piero would go on to become the vice chairman of the Ferrari company with a 10% share ownership. And Enzo was posthumously inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1994 and the Automotive Hall of Fame in 2000. Today, Ferrari continues to stand as one of the most prestigious and iconic brand names in the global automotive industry. Their cars are not merely vehicles, they are symbols of excellence, all captured today in a world-class museum. But Enzo Ferrari is only one part of a larger story in auto racing history. Car designers like Carroll Shelby and Jaguar creator William Lyons would also face Ferrari on the track, and you can watch their stories right here, right now. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll be notified of all my future releases. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.